Our love is like a black, black mold. Icarus's wings actually worked just fine, and a cliche by any other name might actually be kind of fun to play with. Welcome to our very first 5 top tips video of Loud Poets Happy Hour. I'm Dr. Katie Ailes. I'm the host of Happy Hour, which is our brand new project in which we take on poetry challenges, we offer some guidance on how to complete them, we do them ourselves, and chat about it and invite you guys to join us for the journey. The very first challenge that we're tackling as part of Happy Hour was proposed by Kevin McLean, and it is to take a poetry cliche and remix it. I'm so excited for this one, guys. If you want to check out the full episode where Kev proposed that challenge, you can watch it. It's linked just up in the eye over there. And please do make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell icon so that you don't miss any of our other upcoming videos. In this video, I'm going to give you examples, ideas, and tips to rework cliche in your own writing. And everything that I mentioned will be linked down in the description below. Guys, I'm especially excited for this video because I think that the tips that I'm sharing here will be useful beyond this specific challenge and help you more broadly in reframing how you use cliche and other common ideas and images in your own writing to keep it really fresh and unique. So let's get to it and let's start here. So what is a poetry cliche? Speaking broadly, a cliche is an idea, reference, phrase, image, or form that has been used so frequently that people start to perceive it as overdone, overused, a bit hackneyed. And zooming in more specifically, poetry cliches are simply cliches that you feel are overdone specifically within poetry and spoken word. These might be references, like Kev's particular bugbear, which is the use of the myth of Icarus. These might be poetic forms, like the epistolary form, which is letter writing. Dear Mr. President, dear Dad. I'm maybe a little guilty of that one. These might be certain phrases like which is to say. These might be metaphors or images or other concepts. I'm quite guilty of using the ocean constantly in my poetry. And particularly when we're talking about spoken word poetry, which is a performance art, these might even be gestures or tones. For example, I tend to clutch my stomach a lot when I'm performing. Do I have cramps? Am I just really emotional? Who knows? But you might perceive it as a bit of a poetry cliche. If you've seen any of my poetry workshops, you'll know that my first step is usually to make a list. I heckin' love lists. So my very first tip for you is to make a list of poetry cliches that you notice either in the work of others or in your own work. Maybe get a little bit introspective here. What are some references, images, metaphors, phrases, gestures, ideas that you notice a lot in your own poetry or the work of others? And then let us know in the comments, what are some of these poetry cliches? So now that you have a handle on what poetry cliches are, let's check out an example of a poet brilliantly reworking a poetry cliche and watch this. Just as there's a long tradition of writers relying on cliche in their writing, there's also a fantastic tradition of writers interrogating, twisting, and remixing cliche in their work. The first piece I want you to check out is McGees' poem, Who's Counting, which is an absolutely brilliant, clever take on the list poem. Here's the beginning of his piece.
1. I've heard a lot of poems that begin with the number 1, then continue in a numbered sequence. I wonder if there is a name for poems such as these. 2. My intrigue has set me to write at least one poem in this numbered structure. 3.
You can watch the full poem through the link in the eye. It's up on the Button Poetry YouTube channel. It gets gloriously weird. What an amazing poem. The reason I wanted to share this poem is because I love that it starts from a place of curiosity and questioning. It doesn't go, list poems are bad and boring and stupid and I know everything about poetry and I'm judging you. Instead, it starts from a place of, what is a list poem? What's the name for it? How is it used? Why are these people using it? And then as the poem progresses, it gets critical and McGee goes, yeah, these are not for me. But it starts from a place of curiosity. So my tip here is that as you're playing with cliché in your poetry, try not to come at it from a place of pure criticism from the starting line. Instead, try to think about, okay, why do people use this? Is there maybe anything positive that it has to offer me? Moving on to tip number 3. For a different take on how to remix cliché, read this. The next example that I have for you guys is one of my favorite poems of all time, Bad Moon by Claire Askew. It was included in the Best Scottish Poems of 2014 and came out in 2016 in her collection This Changes Things with Blood Axe. I'm going to read the first 4 lines here, but as always, the full poem is linked in the description below. Bad Moon. The moon must be sick of being in poems, always gripped by fingers of late honeysuckle, always filtered in the lake through the jetty's slats, always silvering the flicked tails of the koi. The poem starts by talking about the ways that we commonly use the moon in poems, but then as it progresses, it asks, what other ways does the moon exist in the world that we do not talk about in poetry? Maybe the less savory, more violent, and kind of nasty ways that the moon also exists. So I wanted to share this example, A, because it's a stunning poem, and please buy this book. It is full of brilliant, brilliant poems like that. But also because I think that this is such a perfect way of treating poetic cliché, a way of going, okay, there are all of these ways that we tend to use an image or a phrase or an idea or a reference in a consistent manner. How are we putting on blinders to the other ways that we could use these ideas in our poetry? So my tip here is, as you're reworking cliché in your poetry, think, what aspects of the cliché do we not talk about? Maybe your cliché is Dear Dad poems. What about the flip side? What would it be like to receive a letter like that? Okay, for my next tip, I want us to dive outside of poetry and look elsewhere. Poetry is not the only art form plagued by cliché. Clichés exist in every art form, in every genre. And for this tip, I want us to look a tiny bit at film cliché. Within film and other visual media, there are so many commonly used storylines, shots, bits of audio, characterizations, and other clichés that we've come to rely on. And oftentimes, these are things that were once innovative and deeply powerful, but then have become reused to a point where they're a little bit hackneyed.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
But here I want to focus on visual media that remix clichés in a really powerful way. And the best recent example that I can think of is the Marvel television series WandaVision. If you haven't seen it, no spoilers. I just want to mention that the series really brilliantly flips traditional sitcom storylines and visual tropes to reveal a more complex underlying storyline. Why am I recommending a TV show in a video about writing poetry? Firstly, because WandaVision is hecking great and everyone should go watch it. But secondly, because I think that film makes it easier to understand a core aspect of cliché. Cliché is the expected execution of an idea. And when you don't fulfill the audience's expectations or the reader's expectations, that can be just as powerful, if not more so, because you've subverted what they're expecting. WandaVision is brilliant because it relies on us assuming that sitcoms work one way, and then it pulls the rug out from under us, giving us a much more jolting and ultimately powerful viewing experience. Other great examples of visual media that subvert cliché are Get Out, Cabin in the Woods, and 500 Days of Summer. And guys, if you have any other great examples, please do leave them in the comments below. So to apply all of that to your poetry practice, my tip here is to try completely flipping, completely subverting the cliché that you're working with. What if Icarus's wings actually worked? Have a play around with those ideas of total cliché reversal. We've come down to our final tip. And remember, this might sound counterintuitive to say in this video, but clichés aren't inherently bad. The reason a cliché becomes a cliché is because it is such a powerful, effective way of communicating something that a lot of different writers and artists cling to it and use it because it works. We rely heavily on the myth of Icarus because it's a brilliant story. What a powerful metaphor for the ramifications of careless ambition and hubris. And frankly, it's a much better story to tell about a boy falling from the sky covered in melting wax and feathers than it is to sit there and go, please take temperature into account when planning your physics experiments. My point here is that the cliches themselves aren't bad. We just get tired of them because they're used frequently. So when you're playing around with remixing cliche, try to tap into the reason why this phrase or gesture or object became a cliche in the first place, and see if there's anything positive that you can distill from that in a slightly more interesting, innovative way. And finally, if through this video you've realized, oh crud, I use cliches constantly in my own poetry, don't beat yourself up. I had the exact same realization. Just try to ruffle them up a little bit more in your next poem. And those were my 5 top tips for remixing cliche in your poetry. Thank you so much for checking out this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments if you have any other ideas, any cliches you want to share, any interesting poems or films that address this topic. Please do leave them below. I would love to check them out. We have 2 more cliche goodness videos for you guys to check out. Next Thursday, I will be checking in with Mark Galley to see how he's getting on with this challenge. And then on Sunday, June 6th, we're going to be releasing our full episode, sharing our poetry remixing cliches and talking about it. Remember that to support our work and to submit your own challenges for us to write and for me to provide some guidance on, you can sign up to our Patreon for as little as £1 a month. And please, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so that you don't miss any of our other upcoming videos. Your support honestly means the world, guys. Thank you so much. We will see you again soon, and happy writing.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.